All right. Here we go. This is Ann. We're live. This is actually going to happen.
Great. I'm excited about this, Dan.
Yeah, this is a new series for Blurb in the sense of having a little bit more of a long form conversation, interview style. We might have done this a little bit over the years, but it's been a while. So it's always exciting for me to be able to sit and talk with a real photographer who's out in the world doing assignments. And but I mentioned this earlier. I have to apologize for all the Americans heading towards New Zealand these days. But hopefully you'll get some good ones. And I'm envious. I have never been to New Zealand, so it's high on my list. And hopefully one day we can connect down in your country.
That would be fantastic. New Zealand's a great place and a great place for photography, as a lot of people well know. So, yeah.
Excellent. So before we go any further, tell us who you are, where you are, and what you do.
Okay, my name is Ann Orman. I'm a commercial photographer based in Auckland, in New Zealand. I mainly focus on lifestyle advertising shoots. So I have a lot of corporate clients, a lot of large clients, which has been great. I've been doing this for commercially. I've been doing it for about 10 years. So my work tends to be on websites, backs of buses, billboards, annual reports, all that sort of thing. So, and all digital, of course, because we've transferred. So, yeah.
So full-time photographer for about 10 years.
For about 10 years, yeah.
So I have a question though. You used a word, a very interesting word to me, which was corporate. And I know you're a commercial photographer now and you do corporate work, but you spent your
yes.
20s and 30s in the corporate world.
Yeah,
And
I
I'm
did.
curious about this because we had a little chat before this interview started. I worked for Eastman Kodak for about 4.5 years, corporate world. My wife worked in the corporate world for 35 years. And you were in the corporate world, your 20s and 30s, but that was not the right fit for you. What was it about that world that you said, okay, this isn't really for me?
It's funny. I describe the corporate world as like being in the Matrix. I think people are in it and not realizing what they're in until they get out and they look back and go, there's this whole world that's structured that doesn't allow you to be you in the world. When I was, I mean, I rose pretty quickly in the corporate world. So in my 20s, I was a regional manager for one of the largest companies here in New Zealand. And my mother had a long battle with, she had an 18-month battle with cancer. And I was trying to figure out how to balance, setting up this new division of a company, managing staff, traveling, every weekend to go look after her. And then after she passed away, I just went, I'm done. I've got to step away. So I stepped away and I came back probably a year later, and I ended up doing and being self-employed. So it would have been about 32, I think, and I haven't really been employed since then. I don't think I'd make a terrible employee. I'm just not that I'm not that way inclined anymore. So yeah, I went in to do medical pharmaceutical recruitment. So I was on the fringe and going back into the corporate world. So I'd been in the corporate world probably for 10 years. And then halfway through that time, I picked up my camera, which I'd had for a long time. I'd had a nice little Canon. It's sitting on my shelf over there, actually, my nice little Canon film camera. And, I'd play with it and, take it traveling and stuff like that, but I never really mastered it. So I did a 2-day course on using a manual camera, developing a film and developing it in the darkroom. And I was gone. I was literally every weekend for 18 months I spent in the darkroom producing, printing all my own stuff, and had a couple of exhibitions. And then I was 7 years doing recruitment. And the woman who I worked with, she knew it was coming. I said, I've got to go, because I was sorry.
No, that's what my next question was. How long was it before the seed of doubt creeped into your mind about being in the corporate world to the time you jumped? And then I have another question about, where did that first film camera come from? Where did that first spark? Was it a gift? Did you buy it on your own? Was it something your parents did?
I had cameras growing up, which I find really weird. Is that I went into nursing, so I'm initially I was a nurse, so I trained, did my 4 years, worked in hospitals and stuff for another few years, and went, this is going to do my head in. There was a glass ceiling, and I couldn't break through it, so I kind of stepped out. But not until I looked back a few years ago and went, I had a little, the little Instamatic cameras, and they had the little flash bulb on the top.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'd be going around taking really weird photos of things, abstract. And I still to this day, and my father had a camera. My parents were scientists. So I'm not a scientist. I'm not even in that realm. I'm adopted. So I have this adopted kid who's very creative and very gregarious into a family of very highly academic people. It was a little bit of a juxtaposition. And so I don't think my mother ever said to me, why don't you go and do something in the creative world? What about photography? You love the camera. My dad had a camera. He took a lot of, slide film and stuff like that. It was like either be a nurse or be a teacher. I said, well, I didn't want to be a teacher, so I went off and did nursing. So I've always had a camera. And then my ex-husband gave me, I'm trying to see what the camera was. It's a Canon, one of the early Canon film cameras. And I remember he bought that back when he went to a trip to Hong Kong, and he bought that back for me. And this is in my mid-20s or late 20s. And then I did this course and really mastered the camera. Was that the question? This is going to happen. We're going to do
it was. Yeah. It's funny because when you say somebody went to Hong Kong and brought back a camera, that's an interesting story because I've heard it so many times with so many photographers whose family members, or there was someone in the military that ended up in Hong Kong to get that. The other question I had was when that seed of doubt crept in, and you say, because I was in the exact same position at Kodak, where Kodak was a job. Typically when people got a job with Kodak in the 90s, it was a job for life. They gave you a car, there was great benefits, and most people took that job and they were like, I'm going to ride this out no matter what. But I had the second that doubt crept into my mind, 6 months later to the day, I was gone. So when it crept, how long did it take you? And was it scary to leave the corporate world to go into something like photography?
Well, I'd already gone out of the corporate world and gone into being self-employed. I think that first step was the scariest bit. So I was now self-reliant on myself to, pay my taxes, pay everything else. So I'd already done that when I was about 32. The thing about doing recruitment was that I did a lot of career counseling as well as part of it. So I was doing high-end recruitment and medical roles and things like that. But I also would do career counseling with people. And I remember sitting in a session and I was thinking, I'm talking to you about what you should be doing with your life. And I went, I'm done. I've got to go and do what I need to do. So that was the moment. And what I did find is that it's interesting that you say 6 months. Most people, it's a 2 year. What I found was a 2 year window from the thought of, maybe, to actually doing it. You need a year to kind of percolate, and then you have a year to get ready, and then you go. That's kind of what I found, and that's what happened with me. And I just went, and then I remember this is going back 2007. It's 2005 actually that I actually started Googling, because Google really wasn't much in 2005, photography courses. And I looked for New York, I looked for LA, I looked for London, and I looked for Paris, because I'd always dreamed of living in Paris. I remember living in Christchurch, years before that, going, oh my God, I just want to wake up and be in Paris. And then I found one in Paris. So I applied and they accepted, and I'm going, oh my God. Oh, but going back a step, I'd already had, because I was printing my own work and stuff, I'd had a couple of exhibitions, and the first exhibition was a sellout. And I'm like, I think I have something here. I think this is, something I could do.
What was the work? What was the work of the first exhibition?
Back then it was just fine art stuff. So a lot of, there was flower photography, there was still life, a lot of still life photography. Definitely not people. They weren't my thing. I was very good at talking to people, but the thought of putting a camera in front of my face while I'm talking to you just didn't affect it. Whereas now that's totally my thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of still life, and a lot of so when I had the exhibitions, they were hand printed onto fiber-based paper. So it was a beautiful quality, you know, some really nice big pieces. And yeah, that was to me the signal that, yeah, you're onto something. And then I said, I just have to do this. I can't question it. I could not stay doing what I was doing.
So you ended
So
up, you left New Zealand to go to Paris. So by
yeah,
this time, so you have the exhibition, it sells through. You said, okay, there's
yep,
something here. I'm definitely onto something. And it's
yeah,
interesting to me, also because of what your parents said, hey, be a nurse, be a teacher. That's, I think, also for a lot of photographers, my parents were exactly the same. My father said,
yeah,
photography is a hobby. It's, you should be an investment banker. And so I think that's
yeah,
it. He actually
yeah.
was, he was right. I probably should have been an investment banker, but I think that's a common story. And I love hearing the fact
Mm,
that that was the direction you were being given, but you said, you know what, I got to try this other thing. Now I'm
yeah.
intrigued by this. You search for photography classes and you end up in Paris. What was it? Like, who are you studying with, and what kind of education was that?
Oh, so I was at Speos, which was in the center of Paris. Here's a funny story. You know when it's right, when everything, you know, everything falls into place. I'd applied, I got accepted. I had told my company that I'm working with that, or my business. There were only four of us in the business, so we were in a very small niche business, that I was leaving. And then I was at dinner with a friend, and he had a friend over from New York. She happened to be an investment banker in New York, and is it Fifth Ave or wherever it is, the Wall Street's in. And I said, I'm going to Paris, but I need somewhere to live. She said, oh, I have an apartment over there. I'm just finishing it. She said, it's in Saint-Germain. And I went, oh
Oh,
my God, that's where I want to live, on the left bank, right?
that's not
And
fair.
and that, perfect timing. And then everything fell into place from there. So I ended up, and the the apartment was on the sixth floor of a walk up. The
Oof.
school, yeah, let's just say my knees are not brilliant. Um, the school that I went to, Speos, is it's an international school, so
Okay.
that you had there were 50 international students and 30 French students. So the international side was lectured in English, and the French side was obviously lectured in French. But we were there for 9 months. It was a pressure cooker. So you went
Wow.
in, it was photojournalism, it was studio. We had art tours every week to probably 3 exhibitions a week in Paris. It was probably one of the, up there with the Africa trip, is one of the best experiences. I said to people when I came home, if I got knocked over by a bus, I'd die happy. It was, I ticked a box.
Well, just the giant sigh that you just let out tells me exactly the
Yeah.
memory of that must be pretty fantastic. So 9 months
That one
intensive.
there's from Paris. Yeah.
Oh,
That
nice.
that image there of the antique, that was a still life that I took in the studio. So yeah. Yeah,
And
so
so
9 months.
9 months.
Yeah, nine
And
months for
then
the pressure cooker. Yep.
when you came out of that, was there a discipline of photography that was it, did you come out of that saying, I'm going to be a
Oh,
commercial photographer, a doc photographer? What was it?
you come out of that and you go, where do I go now? I remember doing photojournalism, and see, the beauty of Speos is that you're also linked in with the Magnum photographers.
Oh,
So
okay.
we went and saw Paola Reversi, Sebastian Salgado, who just passed away
Yeah.
2 days
Yep.
ago. That
Yep.
beautiful photographer. He Philippe Batchelor, who was our printing kind of technician lecturer. He did all the printing for Sebastio. So, we had access to some amazing people. I did photojournalism, and the guy said to me, yeah, no, that's not your thing, because I didn't like to. I'm an ex-nurse, right? So I'm not going to photograph someone on the ground. I'm going to go and help someone
Gonna
on the ground.
help
So
them.
that kind of defeats the purpose. When I came out, I didn't know. I thought when I was going to Paris, I'd end up in LA or London. I honestly thought I wouldn't be coming back to New Zealand, but Paris is an amazing city. It's very bureaucratic, and
Mhm.
it's a concrete jungle. So you've got, and I come from New Zealand, which is green, open, low buildings majority of the time. And I think after the second winter, I said, no, nah, just only. And also the GFC had struck.
Mm.
So the global financial crisis, it had hit just as
Oh
I was
yeah.
leaving. It was New Zealand had started, and it hit. I remember coming back from 3 months in Africa, and I was sitting in Heathrow, and the Lehman Bank had gone under, and I went, "Oh,
Uh-oh.
this is, yeah, we're in trouble." So I ended up coming back home, but with no idea. I kind of didn't know where. That's another part of the story of how I got into the corporate side. So
And
um,
the Africa trip came after
yeah,
Paris.
so
And so
yeah, so we'd finished school. Yeah,
give us, so you're coming out of school, you're looking around saying what's going on, and you end up on a bus through Africa with 17 other people for a pretty extended period of time. What was
yeah.
that? How did it come about?
Do you know the funny thing is? I don't know. I just remember going online, going, "Where am I going to go? Oh, Africa's not far from here." Booked a trip and went. Do you know, it's one of those things that if you think too hard about it, you probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But I did, and we ended up on this trip. There were 17 of us, as you say. There were 17 of us on an old truck that was converted into a bus, and we started in Cape Town, and we did 17,000 kilometers over 7 weeks, all the way up to Kenya, to Tanzania,
Wow.
and up there with Paris. It's just it's.
And
Have you been to Africa?
I've only been to North Africa.
Okay, yep,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Africa is just something else.
let me see if I set this table right. So you've done your 9 month in Paris. You end up, you're like, I got to go somewhere now. Africa's close. You book a trip there. You end up on this bus. You do this incredible road trip. Was this the first time that you were a trained photographer, but you were on your own with no one really telling you what to do? So this was like maybe potentially the first true freedom as a photographer that you had had.
Mm.
Is that accurate? And then how did you respond photographically?
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's exactly where you, and I remember sitting around the table and people said, we were getting to know each other, and they said, "Oh, so what do you do?" And I went, "I'm a photographer." Like,
Oh, yeah.
I'd trained, but I hadn't, and no one's paid me to do jobs. So does that make me a photographer? So yeah, it was a little bit of a, I'm a photographer, but I feel like a bit of me is pretending to be a photographer because I hadn't worked yet. It was a
Yeah.
weird time. The funny
No, I
thing
can
is that, sorry,
no, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
the funny thing is that it wasn't until I started putting my books together, and this is 15 years later, I went, wow, those images, man, they're still ones that I absolutely love today, but I didn't fully appreciate them when I took them, which I think is a journey as a photographer anyway. Even when I do a corporate shoot, even now, I don't look at the images for a couple of days because I'm too close to it. I need to separate off and then go, yeah, that's really good, that's really good, that's really good. But it took me a long time, and then I look at those images and I just go, what a trip. Because here's the other thing, there was no social media. The iPhone had just been launched.
Yeah.
So that was launched 2010. No social media. Facebook was around, but there was obviously no internet or anything. So I'm sitting on the bus and I just have my camera. People are listening to music and stuff, and I'm like, you're missing the point of Africa. Just do nothing. Be still, take the journey. And that's why 3 of the books that I put together are called Views from a Bus, because I just took photos out the window. And some of the photos I captured were just, there's one of I don't know if you can. Shall I show you a photo that I think is?
Yeah, sure.
Let me see if I've got it in here. I've actually. Um,
Well, and I think too, to one of your points here, life before social media was actually pretty darn nice. There was
yeah,
something, when you travel,
simple.
having a paper
Yeah,
guidebook, not sort of connected to the phone all the time. I think the disconnect was much easier back then. So I think
mm,
I kind of look back on those timeframes with a fondness because it was simpler, it was a little bit slower, a little quieter kind of thing. But
yeah.
yeah,
So,
let's.
so this is the. If I can hold that up,
Oh yeah, yeah. Look at
and you can
that.
see them with the bananas, and and I think half the people on the bus would have missed that. Because they go, oh, look at that out the window. But I think photography is wonderful because it gives you a memory. Do you know, three of the books that I did are called the Travel Diaries, which is quite slightly different because it's with other people on the bus. And a friend of mine who I made on the trip, is now living in Australia, or she was from Australia, and she wanted to buy those copies because that was her memory. Do you know, I
Sure.
think we have a responsibility as photographers in some ways.
So I have a
Yeah.
question. Sometimes people say, I started in photojournalism. You were in photojournalism early, and there's people that say, a lot of people who don't do photojournalism, they'll say, well, the camera is a shield. The camera is like a shield between what it is you're photographing and yourself. I've always kind of felt at times it can be, but at most of the time, it's not only not a shield, it works as a way of connecting you more to the scene because you're paying attention to things like light. How do you feel about that? Does you feel like the camera is
100%.
a barrier, or does it
Yeah.
bring you closer?
Yeah. That's why I couldn't do, when I came back and set up my business doing corporate work, I couldn't do portrait photography because I'd come from recruitment, which is one-on-one connection, looking in people's eyes, getting a feel for who they are, finding out where they're at. And then I thought, if I'm going to put a camera in front of my face, it does become a shield. And I didn't want to break that down. So I had to work out how to use it as a connection tool from that perspective. But I totally agree. I think it's a conversational piece. I think it's a way of bringing people in, not separating people off. So, particularly if it's connected to yourself. Do you know, it's a soul connection photography. Yeah.
How long was it between that first trip to Africa and the time where, or let me rephrase that. How long was it between the moment when someone asked you what you did and you hesitated by saying, oh, wait a second, I think I can officially say I'm a photographer, until you felt I am fully established and this is what I do and who I am, and I've sort of made it here. How long was that time frame?
It was a long time. It was a long journey. I remember a friend of mine, I did a book on creative New Zealand women here and covered 34 women. And there is a very dear friend of mine, Anita, who's an artist. And we're kind of doing joint journeys of being creatives. And we both talked about, when do we call ourselves artists, or when do we call ourselves a photographer? And she kept saying to me, oops, sorry about that. She kept saying to me, you're a photographer. You are a photographer. You have to call yourself a photographer. But even I think calling yourself a photographer, there was still an element of, I'm going to be found out that I'm not very good, because there's a lot of photographers out there and you compare yourself. So there's
Sure.
that going on as well. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, I'm 100% there, for sure. Now there's no hesitation, about, and this is, 10 years in.
Yeah. Well,
it's a funny journey.
it's interesting. You say 10 years, because that was exactly what it took for me. When we spoke earlier and I said I took this job at Kodak because I didn't want to shoot assignments, at the end of that 5 years at Kodak was my 10th year as a professional. And that's when I realized, now I know who I am as a photographer. But it took me 10 years as well. So,
isn't it interesting?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I think a lot of times now there's this conception that if you buy a piece of good equipment, you can immediately parlay this into being a really good professional photographer. But I think it really takes a lot of work. And, I had opportunities that younger photographers today probably don't have. So it's okay for it to take a long time to get where you want. So,
well, do you know, they do say, sorry to interrupt, Dan, they do say that to become a master is 100 hours. To become a master of anything is 100 hours. And I think that's quite accurate, that it does take a long time to learn your craft. And you might be good at taking a photograph of one thing, but if you want to do it at a high level of a raft of things where they can plonk you in a situation and you have no hesitation of how you're going to shoot it, that takes experience. So yeah, and so this is kind of a good conversation to confirm that, that's kind of normal.
yeah, I think it is. I mean, look, there's superstars out there who, they walk to every generation. To me, so a few people come along that are transcendent artists in their field, and they kind of redefine what photography or art or, illustration is. But, I was never in that crowd. So to me, it was like, I'm working in the coal mines every day to try to figure out how to do this. So I think it's a good thing to share with people that it took a long time. And it wasn't a linear path to photography. It was ups and downs. And I think that that's great. Now, the interesting thing is that the next question is really about, when I look at your site now, it's fascinating to me because, and it makes me happy when I look at that site, because you introduce yourself as a commercial photographer, but I also see work on there that's personal. And I'm curious about that combination, the idea of a commercial assignment versus a personal assignment.
Right.
Which takes up most of your time, and why are both of those so important?
Well, the personal stuff is my soul stuff. That's the stuff that keeps me alive. That keeps me alive as a photographer. I mentioned briefly in our pre-conversation about a woman called Christina Force, and I remember 5 years in, I kind of went, why am I doing this? It's become work. It's a job. This is not photography. This is not what I signed up for. Not what I thought I'd signed up for. And so she does this thing called a blitz, and you put together what you feel are your best images and put them forward to her, and she goes through them, and she'll highlight the ones that she knows. And this woman is you've met her. I think you mentioned you'd met her. She's a global force. She's a global network of international art directors. She's very, very good at what she does. And she came back and she said, these are your key things. You're exceptional at taking photographs of people and of hands. And I went, oh, that's good. That's the stuff I love. But because it's peppered in with all this other stuff that it gets lost, you don't know. And I went, right, so that's how I'm going to pitch myself. So I changed my website completely. And you'll see there's a lot of headshots and a lot of hands on my website. And then clients keep coming up to me and going, I want you to shoot like that. And a lot of that stuff then became personal projects. So the personal projects and the work projects then become intertwined. But I think at the end of the day, you also have to take on the stuff that is, you still got to be paid to do a job and do stuff that you're good at, but you don't necessarily love. So yeah, it's a mix. And I think my travel stuff is my personal stuff. My travel stuff and my books. And as I said, I did a book on the creative New Zealand woman, and that was 4 years. That was a long project, a long personal project. But do you know, at the end of it, I go, wow, I'm really proud of that. And they go, what's next? What else am I going to do? Because I have to have personal stuff. And here's the other thing is, Christina always said, shoot personal projects, because that's how people see what your true style is, because it's what you love to shoot. You'd find that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, to me, that's exactly the thing. I think the best work that photographers make is their personal work. And sometimes that personal work can become their commercial work. And then sometimes they have to jump back and forth. But I think what you had, that existential crisis of saying, what did I get myself into? This is not what I got into photography for. I think that is a conversation that every single one of us goes through at some point where, and I had my existential crisis in 97 when I quit working as a photographer and started for Kodak, because I had the exact same scenario as you. Like, what am I doing here? And I came out of it 5 years later. You came out of it as well and jumped into this commercial world. So I love the fact that you've been able to find a balance between those two things. I want to go back here for a minute, because I know that you spent 18 months every weekend in the darkroom once the photography bug sort of attached itself to you. Yeah. So I know you've been printing from the beginning, but is that true? Is printing everything you're doing has that been part of the process from day one?
It was early on, definitely, because I got into the dark. I love tactile stuff. I love old school. I love books. I love books. It's another passion. When we've just moved into this house. This was our kind of holiday home, and I had a few medical issues with my knee, and so I had to come up here and rehab, and we had to bring everything up here. And I went, oh my God, I have so many books. I have probably over 200 big coffee table books, beautiful things that people have published. So print, to me, I don't care how it's printed, on a postcard, in a book, on a poster. You do know what I mean? And I've got like these two. I've got so much print work.
And is
That.
it strictly because it's tangible, or is it because you know that the person behind the print had to put that kind of thought into it before they printed it? So it wasn't a willy-nilly
Oh,
thing, or is it just about the
that's a good
tangibility?
question. I've never really thought about that. I just know that I love it. Do you know what I mean? It's
What
like,
was So
yeah.
you out of the darkroom prints, and then my guess is when you were obviously in the darkroom era, you're shooting film, and then you're transitioning
Yeah.
later into shooting digital. A lot
Yeah.
of times when people transition to digital, myself included, there was sort of a dip in the printing scenario. And for me, the printing really came back full force with books. Was
Yeah.
that similar for you? And what was the
Yeah,
first?
that's really interesting, because actually it was during COVID, and of course no one's working during COVID. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And I think I missed a Google Blurb book. Blurb came up. I can't remember. There was a few that I looked. There was about probably 3 platforms I looked for it, and Blurb seemed the easiest. And I went, bingo, let's go and make stuff. And so I published a couple of books, and I went, oh my god,
Do
they
you
were the
remember what the first? Well, clearly the Blurb marketing team is infiltrating New Zealand, which makes me happy.
Yeah.
But do you remember the first Blurb book that you laid out?
The first, oh, well, yes, but this is, oh, yes, okay. But this is going back, this is when my partner's father started getting dementia. And I put together a Blurb book of old photographs of his entire family. And we bought it, I don't think the dementia thing had kicked in yet completely. So we put this book together to celebrate, it was to celebrate his birthday, that's right. It's just a little one. And I did it because I knew software and was still working with images, and it took me a while to work. That's a few years ago now. And anyway, we published this book, and I swear to God, when he ended up with dementia, like full dementia, that saved him. He looked through this book. So that was the first one that we put together. And that was
Wow,
a while ago.
that's
It
a
was,
heavy situation, but that's such an
yeah.
amazing use of a book. My mom passed away last year and had
Oh,
had
I'm
dementia as
sorry.
well. So I
Oh,
think that's
yeah.
an interesting angle. And so since the time you made the first one, which was a family book, a personal book, and I think for a lot of people, a lot of professional photographers think that books have to be a certain thing, and I think sometimes they lose track of the fact that personal books are like personal photography. They can be really helpful in a breakthrough. What was the first professional book that you put together? Was it The Women of New Zealand, that book?
Yeah, so yes, because we started, it's called Spirit, Conversations with Creative Women. So we started that book, it was probably 5, maybe 6 years ago now. We started it prior to COVID.
Okay.
And the reason I did that book is that, the funny thing is, I've never really thought about books, but they, so you're making me think quite deeply about what I do. But I wanted to celebrate female artists that I knew. So there's probably about 10 or 12 really close friends in that book. And we wanted a book that people could pick up and read and go, oh my God, I can do that too. I'm an artist. So that's what we did. So we interviewed them, heavily photographic book. I should have actually grabbed one out, but anyway, there's one on my shelf there. Anyway, so we did that, and during that, COVID obviously hit. So that's when I decided to start doing these books. But I think it had a separate connection to the Spirit one. I've always loved books. I mean, photography books. They're my jam. It's what I love. But it wasn't until COVID hit that I went, oh my God, I can't have all these images that I've shot from travel sitting on a hard drive. I just can't. I can't get to Bert's age and have dementia and not have anything to look at. That was part of the reason of doing it. I wanted to have my own travel history available, either to me or to other people. So it kind of morphed and took on its life that way.
Yeah, and I think we all have work on hard drives that sort of haunts us behind the scenes of thinking that I got to do something. I got to get this out. I got to get it out of here. And I think that's one of the best things about print on demand systems, where maybe the work isn't good enough to be out in popular circulation or go after a publisher, but you also want to make sense of it, and you want to have that tangible thing that you can go through and look at it. So you've really the blurb angle, if I understand this correctly for you, is that the travel books have become really the thing that you've made 20 of these from your travels.
23.
23. You're starting to get up there in the hierarchy of the blurb user base. What is there a set of ingredients, trim size, paper type, cover type, is there that you've stayed consistent, or are they all varied?
Totally. Yep, totally.
Oh, you have.
So when the first three that I did were hard covered, and the layout wasn't brilliant. I really didn't have it together. I'm not a graphic designer, so I kind of thought to myself that I didn't have the ability to lay something out. Anyway, so I published the first three hardcovers and I went, and they're not quite right. And then I published, what was the first one I did? Africa? No, I can't remember what the first one was. It would have been the Bali and Vanuatu ones, I think I did. And then I came up with, I wanted soft, which is like this one. It's a nice soft, soft cover. Then I came up with I went, oh, I'm going to do that title page. So there's that one. And then, so everything became consistent. And then I also looked at, when they're in the shelf, how are they going to look?
Oh,
so they all look exactly the same. So identity. And then inside, so paper stock, yes. So it means I have a 240 page limit, and it's in luster. So, and then I started doing this. So at the very beginning, and I'll tell you, there's a story behind this slowly. So every front page has this. There's a real consistency to it.
Okay.
And then on the inside, a map and a quote and a blurb about the holiday or about the trip or whatever it was.
And
so
you're
that's
doing
kind
the
of
design. You're doing the design as well.
Yeah, I've done the design myself. And I kind of sat back and went, does that feel good to me? That feels right. And I think and I've had quite a few people comment and go, yeah, it looks really good. So I'm kind of happy with that. So
I'm gonna chime in and say those look really good. I love when I asked about the consistency of the materials, I was hoping you were gonna say, yes, they're consistent, because how they look on a shelf, and when you hold those up and I see the thickness of that, I think the object of the book itself is really important, and you've obviously maxed out page count, but I love balancing out the higher end paper with a soft cover, because soft covers feel a little bit more informal. They feel a little bit more approachable, but they're beautiful. And are all 23 books that's the same, or just the 3 that you started with?
Exactly the same. No.
Oh, they are.
No, so the 3 that I started with, I think there's one copy downstairs somewhere. All the 23 actually just sitting right behind me on my shelf next to me, and they're all consistently the same size, because it just seemed to make sense for the whole thing. So
you did the design and the edit and the sequence yourself. And how long from start to finish, what was that process? Edit, sequence, design.
Okay, so when it first started out, it took me a while. It took me a while to get my head around. Like the first books I did, I went, oh my God, they feel clunky. It just doesn't, it's kind of not working. And so it's an interesting part. I went and saw this guy who was talking about, is an Aussie photographer, Tony Hewitt, I think his name is. He did this talk here in New Zealand. I went and saw him, and something just clicked. I don't know what it was. I can't remember what he said. And I went home and I went, right, this is how I need to edit. So I use Lightroom as an editing tool for photography, which is, you're familiar with Lightroom? Yeah, which is a brilliant tool. It categorizes, you don't have to really think too much. You kind of just visually, it kind of works. And so I put everything into categories. I started to get my hero shots sorted out. I got everything sorted out in Lightroom as much as I possibly could before I went into Blurb, into Bookwrite. And then I'd transfer into Bookwrite. And that's when things started making sense, that all my books have chapters. So at the back, I'll show you. So this is how it kind of seminary here. So if you have a look in the back, I've done an index in the back.
Yeah.
But everything has like a chapter page. So I kind of separated it off and there might be one for the natural salt maker, which is a story about them making salt in Bali. There's a few stories in there as well, but it kind of let me categorize. I remember someone saying to me, you don't want to call books what they are. Well, Bali is Bali, so I call it the Island of the Gods. So I'd come up with a name that kind of went, But it
Yeah.
is a travel book. I didn't want to be too obscure about it. And then everything kind of fell into place from there. And then once I had that formula for the first one, it was like, so I could put a book together probably, it would still probably take a week, because you've got to, like, once you put your images in, you think, oh, that doesn't work together. So that one comes out. Oh, that one's not high enough res. So you got to
Sure.
import it back in again, all that sort of stuff. And then look at it. And then you got to double check and triple check and check again 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 and check again. And then the front pages are, they've all got a formula with them. So you got to make sure the formula's right for every so it's bang on. So you get this, and I think it's a photography thing, you get this continuity for every single book. So yeah.
I mean, I think a week of time to put in to get something like that, I think that is such a good use of time, because I think those skills of forcing yourself to look at work with such a critical eye, it makes you a better photographer, whether or not you printed that book or not.
100%.
It's going to make you better.
Yeah.
There's two questions I have about this. Number one is, have you ever used these books to get subsequent jobs? And number two, it seems like travel, and I know you have an interest in the environment and the planet, it seems like travel and the planet are two tailor-made subjects for books. And it also seems like tailor-made subjects for books that you would intend potentially to get into places like public libraries, where the book has a chance of, being around for 50, 60, 100 years in these library systems. So number one, have you used the books to try to get work? And two, have you ever tried to maybe place them in a library or institution?
Not yet, and not yet. And I say that because I've only just kind of come out the end of, like, that's 23 books. So I've did that in 2 years. So that's, that's a lot of work in 2 years. So now what I've just done is I've actually set up a website, finally, an e-commerce site for purchasing images. And then off that comes, at the back end is books and things. And then my next part, because I did wonder about places for these, an actual, not so much libraries or, yes, getting work, but also for tourism. If you've been to Bali and you go, oh my God, that's exactly, it's small enough and I'm going to put it in my bag, I can carry it on as hand luggage. So that's the other things around size. I'm kind of in that stage of, I love being a commercial photographer, but I also want to have a nice balance between that and my travel stuff. So now it's, how do I pull up my travel work to get paid for it and marry that against my commercial work, which is end up with being a little bit of a crossover. So the spirit books in the library for sure. The blurb ones, not yet. One book I am about to do now that I've done all this is a one that'll probably sell in the stores, is a large iconic image book. So out of all my travel images, it's just the heroes, like the real iconic images will go into this travel, quite a, like a large one.
Do you think you would do print on demand, or would you use Blurb's large order volume division and print maybe an offset book?
I haven't. I need to have a look. That's my next stage, because I was thinking about that this morning actually, is to have a look at what the large, and how large that is and how the print would come out. Again, it comes down to cost as well as
it's just money. It's just money. It's New Zealand money. You just money. We'll take it.
Yeah. So I've got to have a look at that, because I think that's the first place I'm going to start, is to print that one through Blurb, get a copy and see how it looks.
Yeah. So, to me, that's the perfect route, is use POD, print a copy, see what it looks like, then go back to the division, the large order services division, and price out what it would take to do a small or medium sized offset run.
Yeah.
That's where it gets, that to me is sort of the future, this hybrid publishing model where you can use all of the different systems at one time. That's interesting to me. And also being able to potentially even do like a secondary publication that is, Ann Orman behind the scenes, like BTS imagery of you in the field, and kind of like the stories behind what was behind the images, like a little companion publication.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Big book. So when you're working on Blurb stuff now, is there is there something you want that you don't have? So it could be a paper type, a cover type, a size. Is there something that you find yourself going, oh, I wish there was this one thing?
More
Or are we
pages.
perfect? Are we perfect?
Honestly, the only thing I go is, how can I get more pages in the book? But then it forces me, because I want good quality paper. Just going back a step, one thing that's really interesting is that I thought, oh my God, there's a lot of images in here. Who's going to look at them? I've had friends and people come over, and people that some people I don't know that well, and I show them what I've been doing, and they sit down, and I have to break the conversation into conversation with them, because they're looking at every single image,
Picture.
and I'm
Yeah.
going, okay, well, that says that I've got some powerful shots in there. So I don't know whether I want to put any more pages in the book. So I think 240s are, because that's 240. So that's a nice,
That's a
it's a comfortable
gorgeous looking book.
size.
That's gorgeous. That's a lot. I mean, I also think too, it's because not only do you have good shots in there, but you curated it. You didn't sequence that to make it the most impactful thing you could. And I think that's really the power of the book. I mean, Jerry Badger said it best, that photography is a story best told in book form. I think that's absolutely true. But I mean, you hold those books up and I look at those and think, I wish I had one of those. I've never done an 8, 10, 240 page soft
Do you know
cover.
where you can buy these? I can sell them to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I happen to have a link here for you to purchase. So,
funny.
so I want to take a step back away from books and go back to photography before we wind this out. But has the meaning, you started in the darkroom, and you went darkroom, digital, and then digital in the social media age, and now digital in the self-publishing social media artificial intelligence age. Has the meaning of photography changed for you, or
100%.
is it the same love?
Yeah. I think you'll probably find this too, Dan, is that I don't know. I know that it's global because I'm part of a global group online and Instagram, and photography has changed in the last 2 years. It's taken a hit. There's less work out there. I think and this is why I want to stay with still images. It's who I am. It's what I do. My partner says, why aren't you doing video? And I'm like, I'm not a videographer. I do this. I capture a moment, and I will keep doing that. And I'll find another way of making it work when the commercial work is not as abundant, which is kind of where it's sitting at the moment. I think everybody's feeling it globally, that the the physical still image is not as, and it's because of social media. We've got AI coming in. I kind of just sit back and go, I'm going to watch what happens first with AI before I jump into too much. But I think it's interesting because when you link it back to what I was doing in the darkroom, printers, I'm a visual. I love tangible. I love something to pick up. I love quality. I love paper. I don't think that will ever go away. And if anything, this environment now is fueling me to do it even bigger and better. And also because I'm digital, I'm not AI. It's the authenticity. It's about how do I stay that my images are still known as to being authentic and not, touched by AI at all. So it's interesting times.
Yeah, it is. I think it's unlike any. I mean, I think photography is constantly evolving, and I think that that's a healthy thing. But there's a lot of, the playing field now has some different patches on it that everyone's trying to learn to navigate. What's the most misunderstood part of what you do?
It's glamorous. I think photographer, or I don't know whether it's glamour or I don't know what's misunderstood about it. I think I understand it so well now that I don't kind of see the misunderstood parts to it. But do people they say, oh, you're a photographer, that's cool. I said, well, it's hard work. It takes you a long time to get there. But when you're there, you look back and you go, well, I've got there. So you kind of don't think about the part where you had to move through and get to that point. So I don't know. I'm gonna put that question back on you, Dan. What do you think?
Oh, I think I think that there's the idea of being a photographer is a very cool idea to most people.
Mm,
The Nat Geo pops into people's mind and they go, oh, wow, this is really amazing. I never shot for National Geographic, but I assisted for some of their photographers. And it was just brutal work. It's
yeah,
really difficult. And those folks
yeah.
had been, like yourself, they'd been in the field for 10, 20, 30 years grinding it out before they got the opportunity to be at the publication. So I think the glamour
Mm,
thing is a very accurate reflection of, okay, this is really most of the time, 80% of photography may be doing billing and trying to get work and marketing and all this.
doing
And
marketing and
the little
yeah,
moments
yeah.
of photography are almost like a sense of relief where you're like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, this is what I'm
get out
supposed
of
to
my
do.
business. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
I wish I was
yeah,
doing this all the time. So
yeah.
I'm curious about two things, two forms of inspiration,
Mm.
which is, was there a source of inspiration from inside of the photography world? And two, what are your sources of inspiration outside of photography? Could be food, could be the travel itself, family, anything.
Mm.
I mean, you were in the same circles with Magnum people early on, so that's a pretty good influence. But
Yeah, that
I'm
was.
also curious what interests people outside of their
Mm.
photography.
Magnum's quite unreachable though. Do you know? I looked at Polar Reversi, and I don't know if you
Hmm.
know Polar Reversi. He does. He's shot all the models. Kate Moss and all that sort of stuff. He shoots in big, big format film cameras. Probably even still to this day. And I go, that's not me. Do you know? And I look at these high end photographers, and I go, that's not me. It's my inspiration. I think really comes back to my travel stuff. If I've just been to Fiji for a week, I'm kind of testing out my new knee and seeing how it is for travel. And
Uh-huh.
I came back from that going, oh my God, let's book 6 months, let's book 3 months, let's book it just put me in there with my camera, let me travel, and I think it takes you away from the trappings of what you have around you. I came home and
Hmm.
I cleared out half the house because I just don't want the things around me anymore. I just want to
Sure.
have my camera and take photos and make books. Do you know what I mean? Interesting
Well,
enough, coming up. Sorry, Karen.
no, it sounds like to me that the juice for you is being in the field. It's the
Yeah,
experience of being in the
yeah,
field, and that's
yeah,
the most
yeah,
important. That's sort of like the crux of your photographic experience is those moments
yeah.
in the field.
Even commercially, when I have oh my God, I've got to go to work today. Do you know? Because it is still work. Still getting paid. You put a bill in, they give you a brief. You're shooting to their brief, not your brief, but you bring your
Hmm.
style. And I still go to jobs now and go, oh, I can get my camera out. I can take photos how I want to take them. I can take hand shots. I can take people shots. So I filter in, excuse me, the stuff that fuels me. I filter that into photography. We came up here to Matakana last year, and I remember seeing a photo of a flat. I know fine art work is what I started with, and doing
Hmm.
flower photography and stuff like that, kind of just dabbling in it. And um, it was about February. I thought I'm going to grow my own dahlia because I found this woman's photograph of a dahlia. I thought that's beautiful. I bought 3 bulbs. One didn't sprout. One kind of bloomed and looked like this. And I thought so. And then I was on Facebook, and this guy said if you'd picked up some bunches from the gate, and they'd wilted, please come and see me. And I went, oh my God, there's a dahlia grower. So this is how I take opportunity. So I rang him and he said, yeah, I've got 150 varieties. He said, come in and take what you want. So I probably shot about 40 of them. I've contacted one of the local businesses here that has a really lovely exhibition space. We've booked in an exhibition for Christmas. Do you know? So for me, it's like if I have a feeling or I have an
Hmm.
inkling of something that I'm interested in, I tend to go down that road. And as soon as I put it out there, the universe delivers. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of where
I
my
mean,
inspiration comes from. It's all sorts of things.
yeah, I think when the spark is an internal as opposed to external spark, the
Mm,
drive is there to see it through. And I think
yeah,
everyone around you that's associated can feel that it is an internal spark, that it's not doing something for show or because you think it's going to be a good business move. It's because you
yeah,
are like, this is who I am and what I want to do.
yeah.
What is your dream assignment?
God. It
Could
used
be
to be
any.
Antarctica.
Okay. Have you
Good.
been
Oh,
to
a dream
Antarctica yet?
assignment. Okay, assignment. So
Yeah,
someone has
dream
to pay me
assignment.
to go on a dream assignment. Oh,
Yep.
anything to do with travel. Anything. Do you know? Do you know Joey Earl as a photographer?
I
He's an
don't know him
American.
personally, but I know who
Oh
he
man,
is. Yeah.
you know of his work, yeah.
Yeah.
I just, I look at his work, and that is this nice culmination of personal work and brand work, where he's worked. I think he's taken a lot of work in India and stuff, where he's, photographed for pharmaceutical companies or coffee companies. I'm thinking, I think that's what my work lends to, is the ability to take people and artisans and people who are working and create that environment. I mean, he's next level because he brings in lights and all that sort of thing. But
Sure.
that would be my dream assignment, would be somewhere overseas shooting for a brand to create images that I love. That would be it.
And so
In
when
the
the
wild, in like, India or Malaysia or Asia or somewhere.
So just
Mm.
verifying you're available for assignment when some
Tomorrow.
editor sees this interview and says,
Says,
"Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
we need her. Yeah, that's it.
we need Ann for sure."
Yeah. Yeah, well, we've just put that one out into the universe, so we'll wait for that one
There
to
we
come
go.
back.
I think
Yeah.
it's going to happen. Well, thank you so much for taking time to do this. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I think your books look beautiful. I would love to see them in person, get my hands on those things. I
Yeah.
appreciate you taking the time to do this. This is such an insightful thing, and I've loved the fact that you have a unique journey in photography that's inspiring, and it also feels very similar to me as well. I think we had some shared experiences here in the
Yeah.
past, so much
Mm.
appreciated.
Can I say, Dan, thank you, and also, I just find the Blurb platform is exceptional, and it's so easy to use, and I don't think I would have done this if there hadn't been that platform. Do you know what I mean? It's like I always
Sure.
said, get your images off your hard drive. It's the easiest thing to use. The thing that the fact that I can whack one out in a week, now that I've got a formula, and then it's delivered a week later. Do you know what I mean? I just know when I've done something, I'm going to get it pretty quick, and I'm not having to wait for it, and you get to see your goods. So, yeah.
Well, and delivered to, of all places, New Zealand. It's not, you
We're not that
said
remote.
early on, you're at the bottom of the globe.
We're at the bottom of the globe. Yeah, we get a lot of stuff here. So,
And we are
yeah,
completely jealous. So
yeah.
hopefully we can connect.
Anytime you come down, come and say hi, because there'll
Oh
always be
yeah,
a room here,
we're
Dan.
coming.
Yeah,
The whole Blurb
yeah.
team is on their way.
Oh, good
We're
on
gonna
you. We've got a
charter
big house. Yeah.
we're gonna charter a flight and take everyone down.
Oh, wouldn't that be brilliant? Yeah, and not go back.
Yes. That would be the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So thanks again.
Thanks, Dan. You're
Much
welcome.
appreciated, and we'll hopefully talk again soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, Dan.